The morning sun had barely crested the horizon over Lexington, Virginia, when Marissa Lane stepped out of her silver Toyota Avalon. The air was crisp, the kind that turned breath into fog and made the early rays of sunlight glisten on the courthouse steps. The Lexington Federal Building loomed ahead of her, wrapped in silence, its granite walls catching the amber light in long, solemn shadows. Marissa adjusted the collar of her navy coat, the material pressed neat and smooth against her tall frame. Her hair silver, coiled, pulled back into a low bun framed her face with calm precision. She walked steadily, not hurried, not slow. Her steps were deliberate. There was something about her posture that told the world she had nothing to prove but everything to protect. She carried a leather briefcase in her left hand, slim and worn with time. Her right hand was free, swinging slightly as she approached the main entrance of the courthouse she had entered hundreds of times before, not as a judge. Not yet this morning, but as a citizen. Inside, the lobby had begun to stir with the soft rhythm of a city waking up. Clerks carried files, lawyers murmured legal jargon over paper cups of coffee, and security officers manned the metal detectors like clockwork soldiers. She nodded politely to the younger officer at the scanner, who returned a thin smile. But then he stepped aside, and from the far end of the checkpoint, Deputy Marshal Curtis Bragg emerged. Mid-40s, square jaw, weathered face that looked carved from concrete, and just as inflexible. He wore his authority like a second skin and his suspicion like a reflex. "Ma'am," he said with a tone that was already sour, "I'm going to need you to step out of line." Marissa paused. "Is there a problem, officer?" Bragg didn't answer at first. He gave her a look slow, head to toy as if trying to decode something he didn't quite understand. Her calm, her presence, her unwillingness to shrink. "No visible ID," he muttered. "You can't just walk in here dressed like a fancy attorney or something. That's not how it works, sweetheart." Without blinking, Marissa reached in her coat and produced a federal judiciary badge. She held it up at eye level, clearly, respectfully. The metal caught the light. Bragg didn't look at it. He snatched it from her hand, casually slipping it into his pocket as if she had handed him a gum wrapper. "I'd like that returned," she said, her tone still measured. He leaned in close enough for her to smell stale coffee and something more bitter beneath it. In a hurry to get somewhere, sugar? Behind her, the younger officer shifted awkwardly, sensing something wrong but not brave enough to speak it. "I need to get to a courtroom," Marissa said. Bragg scoffed. "Then you'll follow my procedure." Before she could respond, he grabbed her arm not enough to hurt, but enough to claim power. She didn't pull away. She didn't make a sound. He led her down a hallway, away from the lobby noise and into a small, windowless room. Inside, one metal chair, one stainless steel cart, a pair of electric clippers resting quietly in the corner. "I do not consent to this," Marissa said calmly. "You have no probable cause. This is unlawful detention." Bragg stood by the door. "You're acting suspicious." She didn't sit. She didn't move. Two more officers entered, one tall and nervous, the other younger, holding the back of the chair. "This is a violation," she said louder. "I want your names." No one answered. Bragg picked up the clippers and turned them on. The low buzz filled the room. "What are you doing?" she asked sharply. "Standard protocol," he said with a sneer. "Could be hiding something in that curly little mop." They shoved her toward the chair. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She sat, fists clenched, spine straight. The clippers touched her scalp. One curl fell, then another, and another. Each cut stripped away something more than hair dignity, privacy, identity. She stared ahead, lips pressed tight. One of the guards chuckled. "Looks better already. Should have left the attitude at home." Bragg smirked. "Now you look like someone who knows her place." Marissa didn't flinch. "You'll regret this," she said. He leaned in close. "People like you always say that. Then walk out like good little girls." He gestured toward the hallway. "Courtroom's that way. Don't be late." She stood. She retrieved her badge from his desk without asking, and she walked out. Her heels echoed down the hallway, each click deliberate. She didn't look back. In less than 10 minutes, The man who shaved her head would be standing in the back of a courtroom, watching her step behind the bench. Not as a victim, as the presiding judge. The courtroom was packed. A high-profile case, Commonwealth versus Lexington Police Department. Civil rights. Excessive force. Abuse of power. The media had shown up early. So had the activists. And the accused. Marissa Lane entered through the main doors. The room fell silent. She walked past the gallery, her head bare, her stride steady, her expression unreadable. She reached the bench where her robe lay folded neatly. She put on herself, with calm hands and a back unbent. From the corner of her eye, she saw Bragg, his face drained of color, his mouth slightly open. She didn't look away. "Is the docket ready?" she asked the clerk. "Yes, Your Honor." "Call the first witness." One by one, stories were told. Of force, of silence, of cruelty masked as policy. She listened. She wrote. She never raised her voice. During recess, the courtroom emptied. She remained seated. Only the clerk, a few bailiffs, and Bragg stayed behind. She looked up. Deputy Bragg stepped forward. He froze. Her voice didn't waver. "Now," he walked slowly. "State your full name for the record." "Curtis Bragg." "How long have you served here?" 18 years. "In those 18 years, how many women have you touched without cause?" He blinked. "Took to know you were a judge." "And if I hadn't been?" He didn't answer. 12 complaints, she said. 12 dismissed. Until now. He trembled. "Effective immediately, you are suspended. Formal charges have been filed with the DOJ. You will be escorted from this courthouse in handcuffs. You will not wear that badge again. You will answer for what you've done." He stammered. "You can't." But the cuffs clicked shut. No aplausos. No celebración. Just reckoning. The courtroom was never the same after that. Something had shifted. Something deeper than walls and policy. A silence had ended. And in its place stood a woman who no longer asked for justice. She delivered it. She sat the next morning in her chambers, robe folded beside her, scalp tender under a fall breeze sneaking through the vent. Her clerk entered. "They're ready." She nodded. Outside, a quiet line of people had gathered. Some holding signs, some just standing. Inside, a new policy sat on her desk. The Lane Protocol. Bias training. Psychological screening. Anonymous reporting. Zero tolerance. No more silence. No more protection by procedure. This was not about revenge. It was about responsibility. She walked into the courtroom again, without her robe, in a black blouse. People stood, not because they were told to, because they wanted to. She addressed the room. "This courtroom will not be a fortress. It will be a mirror. And it begins now." And it did. When Colton Bragg was sentenced weeks later, she didn't raise her voice. She gave him the law, and then she gave him the truth. You spent your career deciding who was worth dignity. Now the law has decided the same about you. 6 years for abuse of power. 5 for civil rights violations. 1 for obstruction. Nobody. No title. Just a man facing the weight of what he'd done. Outside, the sky was gray again. But inside, something new had taken root. And as Marissa Lane walked to her car, coat wrapped around her, she passed a teenager on the steps. Head shaved. Standing tall. They locked eyes. No words. Just understanding. And that was enough.